Hi there, this is Matt with State of Flux, here with the final installment, at least currently, of my career retrospective of the directorial efforts of Kevin Smith. I am here with a review for Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. This movie is one of the most interesting installments of his career, and I think really the gateway into his probably final lap of his filmic career. I hope it goes on quite a bit longer, but this film feels really formative in how his career trajectory is going to go from this point forward. But it wasn't always the case. When this movie was first announced, it was one of those things where I was like, really? We're going to do this movie? This was one of those times where I was kind of disappointed with the announcement of what Smith's next movie was going to be. This movie was announced years and years ago, around 2016 or so, because Smith had worked avidly to get Clerks 3 to be made, but had a falling out with one of the actors. I will probably touch on that when I review the eventual Clerks 3. But he tried like hell to get Clerks 3 made, had a falling out. That was very obviously not going to happen. So then he swung into Mallrats. He wanted to do a sequel to Mallrats, one that he had announced years and years and years ago, back when Mallrats was actually going to be a viable success in his mind, and he'd come up with a plan for Mallrats 2. I don't know if his eventual plan for Mallrats 2 was going to be the same story, but inevitably he went to try to get Mallrats 2 made at every place in the world, and nobody wanted to make it. And then he found out from Universal he didn't even know if he could make it. It was one of those weird, interesting situations. So he wanted to play around with his View Askewniverse one more time, and he didn't have any ownership over any of the characters or any of the stories, with the sole exception of Jay and Silent Bob. So he decided remakes were the big thing. He was going to reboot Jay and Silent Bob and make a movie about reboots. Not unlike Scream 4. And when this was announced, I was just like, I don't really know. I wasn't really feeling it. Plus, he was just coming off of Yoga Hosers and Tusk and stuff like that, which I liked, and I had appeal. They had an appeal to them, and their appeal was that they were so outside of the box, you had no idea where that story was going to go. Diving back into these characters, I wasn't really necessarily feeling that. But then something happened. Something incredibly formative for the trajectory of the rest of Kevin Smith's life, which was he almost lost it. Kevin Smith suffered from a massive heart attack called the Widowmaker. I encourage you to go and listen to his Facebook stream from his hospital bed. It's a fascinating story. But what this did was recontextualize his life. He had this massive heart attack that he shouldn't have survived. Most patients don't survive. But he did. And he changed his life from that moment forward for the better. The angry, bitter Kevin Smith that we'd been seeing from pretty much post-Jersey Girl onwards was diminishing, to be fair, by the point of his heart attack. But when he actually had it, his whole life reframed in a really compelling way. He became incredibly positive just because he was so happy to still be here. And this is important to the movie that we get, because he had written the script and he had trouble getting it financed, but he didn't put his heart into it. And one of the last thoughts that he had before going under the operating table was that he had no regrets with his life. He was happy with his life. His one kind of almost regret was Jay and Silent Bob Reboot was a pretty funny script. It's too bad nobody's ever going to see that, and it's too bad that Yoga Hosers is going to be the last film that he was going to direct. So when he survived, he was like, I'm going to commit. And 1 year to the day after his heart attack, he started making Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. Now, getting to the movie itself, the backstory behind that is really interesting. The positivity of Kevin Smith, the current Kevin Smith, is palpable, and it's exciting, and it's something that I love to watch. His post-heart attack self has brought me back into the fold of being a Kevin Smith fan, which I'd been waning in the years leading up to that moment. When I saw the trailer was okay. It got me kind of excited for the movie. And then I started watching the movie. And half of the movie, I was sitting there and I was like, I don't know, man. I got the joke. And the movie is funny. The movie is a commentary on reboots. And what he does is he takes Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and he just does the exact same movie 20 years later. Almost scene for scene, beat for beat, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. But only for about 30 minutes. The movie's an hour and 45. The first 30 minutes are like beat for beat Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Jay and Silent Bob get into legal trouble outside a Quick Stop. Charges get pressed against them. They find out that there is a movie being made about them. Now it's not just the comic book movie of Bluntman and Chronic being made, it's Bluntman v. Chronic. He takes a couple swipes at Batman vs. Superman with that. Bluntman v. Chronic is coming out, and they have legal ownership over the names Jay and Silent Bob. So Jay and Silent Bob have to go to Hollywood to try to stop this movie from getting made so that they can retain their intellectual property, which is their own selves, their names. And so they go to Brody, who teaches them what a reboot is, which is take something you love, pump it full of diversity, and spit it back out into the world, and people will just rebuy the same shit. And the movie just goes beat for beat from there. As you can tell, it sounds pretty much exactly like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. But then something fascinating happens. The movie shifts gears, and the movie becomes a interesting one when Jay meets up with Justice, the girl that he was head over heels in love with from the first movie. And that movie ended with them kind of together, and then she never really repeated in any of the movies because she was in prison for her jewel thievingness in that film. Turns out that Jay fathered a child, a Millennium Falcon. She's called Millie in the film, played by Harley Quinn Smith. And that's when the movie really kicks off. This movie is entirely about legacy. That's what Kevin Smith wanted to do with this film. When he almost died on that operating table, he decided that he needed to make this movie, because this movie was going to be his legacy. All the headlines read the day that he survived was Clerks director suffers Widowmaker heart attack. It was a question as to whether or not he was going to survive. It was touch and go there briefly, but then he did survive. However, everything you heard was Clerks director, Clerks director. So this movie is a love letter to the films of Kevin Smith, and you get Easter eggs for every single one of Kevin Smith's films, from Cop Out, Tusk, Red State, Yoga Hosers, to certainly all the Jay and Silent Bob features. We reconnect with a character from each one. We reconnect in the very beginning of the movie with Dante. We reconnect with Brody. We reconnect with Holden and Alyssa towards the climax of the movie. We reconnect with Loki from Dogma. And certainly with Jay and Silent Bob and Justice, and see where she is. And as we weave into all of their lives, we get just brimming with Easter eggs from all these Kevin Smith films. And the legacy that Kevin Smith that this movie starts telling you is like, oh, this whole movie is just going to be the Kevin Smith the movie kind of thing, one great big in joke. But then when the film shifts gears and it becomes about Millie, and Millie is sort of the posit justice character in this, and she has a team of 4 very diverse women that are trying to infiltrate the Jay and Silent Bob reboot movie, the Blunt Man v. Chronic. The movie becomes about what Kevin Smith wants his actual legacy to be. I think Kevin Smith resigned to the fact that he's always going to be known as the Clerks director, and that he had a lot of promise and a lot of talent, and then he shifted gears and started making really left of center career moves with Red State, with Tusk, all of those. And he resigned to the fact that he's the guy that made Clerks. He's always going to be the guy that made Clerks. But he doesn't want to be remembered as the guy who made Clerks. He wants to be remembered as the man who made Harley. He has so much love for that little girl. He wrote a whole movie about it called Jersey Girl. And it's a fantastic movie. It's an underrated movie. And this really kind of acts as a sister film to that in a weird way. That is about the love a father has for a young girl, like a primary school girl, and how the father needs to set aside his life that he thinks he should have in order to service the life that he brought into this world. And this film is about the director coming to terms with, yeah, I made Clerks, I made all these things, but look at this other thing that I made that is truly beautiful and truly wonderful and truly amazing. And I'm going to showcase all of her skills. And this is going to be her stage from this point forward. And she steals the effing show. Harley Quinn Smith, I kind of dinged just a touch in both Tusk and Yoga Hosers as being, like, okay, she's serviceable for those films. But she's definitely not the powerhouse performer that any of the other performances in those movies were. She steals every second of this movie, and she is extraordinarily good. Her humor lands, she's funny, but the dramatic moments are great. And the best thing in the world is she extrapolates an incredible performance out of Jason Mewes. Jay gives a performance in this that is elevated beyond anything he's ever done before. Like in terms of comedy and in drama. He is so on fire when he's with her in this film. And this is a love letter to the legacy of the thing he wants you to walk away with is, since he made those movies, he's become a father, and that's what he wants to be remembered for. He wants to be remembered for fathering this extraordinary person. And this whole film is just a love letter to that relationship he has with his daughter. And it's great. This film isn't perfect, though, by any stretch of the imagination. The whole, let's just riff and ride on Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back for a whole third of the movie really doesn't kind of play. Like, once you get the joke, it's like, haha, I kind of get it, but am I going to just honestly watch that whole movie play out again? That's not even one of Smith's best ones. So the first chunk is a little clunky. And Kevin Smith, in all of his comedies post Jersey Girl, has at its center a repeated joke that Smith is really, really a fan of, that he thinks is really, really funny, that just doesn't really land. In Clerks 2, it was the whole donkey show thing. Smith loved that. He thought that was hilarious. In Zack and Miri Make a Porno, it's granny panties. In this, it's the whole weed, the last 3 strains of weed thing. And, yeah, I get it. Smith became a stoner between making Clerks 2 and this film. And fully embraced that lifestyle and had never been a stoner beforehand, so therefore his his several movies about two weed dealers didn't have any authenticity to it. But I don't think anybody was coming for the authenticity of the weed jokes in the movie. They were coming because these two bumbling buffoons are incredibly likable for whatever reason, even though they're so infantile, so juvenile in their humor, yet there's some affable quality that just makes you respond to them. And so whenever the movie just kind of stops and feeds you these like weed specific jokes, it just doesn't really land. It kind of stops like 9 times out of 10. The scene with the edibles and the cameos of Method Man and Redman, that is pretty dynamite though. This movie is chock full of cameos from previous Kevin Smith works. This movie even kind of ties in Zack and Miri Make a Porno, where Justin Long, it appears, reprises his role from that movie in this one, or at least he's playing that character identically. But I like to think that that's his character from that, so that sucks that movie into this world. But anyway, yeah, the cameos are great. There's a lot of good ones. Chris Hemsworth is a standout for his cameo. And then reconnecting with all the characters that I mentioned before, we get the reprisal of Dante Hicks. No Randall this time. That is where that falling out we talked about from Clerks 3 came into being. That got reconciled. You will see in Clerks 3. But not only do we get the reprisal of Dante Hicks, we get the reprisal of Grant Hicks from Dogma. He shows back up. It's nice to reconnect with Justice. She's just kind of a lovable character, and it was sad that she didn't really linger on in any of the movies afterwards, or the one movie afterwards. It was nice to reconnect with her. It's just nice to reconnect with all these people. But the scene stealer of the entire film, more so even than Harley Quinn Smith and her amazing performance in this, is the 8-minute sequel to Chasing Amy in the last act of the movie that really sets the whole climax of the movie into motion. Kevin Smith and Ben Affleck had a falling out themselves, and it wasn't so much that they had a falling out as Affleck's then wife didn't really find Smith a positive influence, if you will. And they just didn't really connect too much after that. Which is kind of a shame, because Ben Affleck is at his performance best in every Kevin Smith movie. And this movie is no different. And Smith is best when he's trying to write for that actor. He knows how to write Ben Affleck better than anybody else, better than Affleck knows how to write himself. And I think Affleck is a tremendous actor. He has gone on and made incredible movies, directed them. Gone Baby Gone is one of my favorite films of the 2000s. The Town is great. He is, in my opinion, the best screen Batman that we've ever got. He marries Batman and Bruce Wayne better than any other actor in any other Batman movie. He's not in any particularly good Batman movies, but I do think Affleck is where it's at. The sequel to Chasing Amy that happens in this, where they talk about and deconstruct the single narrative issue with Chasing Amy being that it's from the wrong perspective. Reintroducing Alyssa and how that shared moment that they had at the very end of Chasing Amy lingered with them for the rest of their lives. And they cared for each other. And they're there for each other. And the allowance for Holden to impart the wisdom back at Jay and Silent Bob that they imparted onto him was really, really moving. And that whole scene about how our children are really our own reboots, and we back away and let them take center stage. That whole scene is just beautifully written, beautifully performed, and yeah, that is the highlight of this film. It's the dramatic moments when Smith is really trying to say something that this movie shines. The comedic moments work, and they're good, but it's not perfect. I'm going to give this film 3 stars. I think it's a solid film. It is on par with Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It's fun to watch a movie with characters that you love and can reconnect with from prior movies. It's fun to get like a ton of Easter eggs, from the Too Fat to Fly to having Kevin Smith play Kevin Smith in this movie and sort of self-deprecate throughout the last act. And the twist of the four women in this is, I think, much more fun and well earned than the climax of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. The stuff here that works really, really works, and the stuff that doesn't is kind of disappointing. The whole like KKK scene could have been executed way better. I feel like the one thing that we've always gotten with Silent Bob is he comes in and he drops a little bit of science on the character he's talking to, and he didn't really talk down the KKK people. That scene just kind of is weird. And this movie has a lot of those scenes that just kind of come out of left field, that just don't really play, that I feel like we're in the draft that was carried over from pre-Heart Attack. And all the stuff about fatherhood and legacy and stuff like that really got shaped post-Heart Attack. And that's what excites me most with Clerks 3. Is we're going to look at... He ended up rewriting Clerks 3 from the ground up because of the falling out he had had with Jeff Anderson. And what excites me is we're going to get a movie where he's going to have something to say that might be profound. We don't know. He's had profound things to say in the past when he's been kind of backed in a corner or had a life-changing epiphany. That's where we get our Chasing Amy's. That's where we get our Dogmas. Hell, that's where we got our Clerks. That's where we got what worked best with Jersey Girl, the father-daughter dynamic. And that's where we got what worked best with this film, which is the legacy that he wants to be known for. Not the Clerks guy, but the Harley guy. So yeah, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot gets 3 stars. Now, I said last week I was going to do a rundown of my ranking of Kevin Smith, and I decided since this one has gone on a little long, I will do that, but I'm going to do it in a separate video, which I will post next week. And then I plan to go in and do some of the Kevin Smith's other works. Kevin Smith is known for writing as well, and he's directed some TV. I haven't addressed any of his short films. He's made a handful of short films. One was even part of an anthology movie, horror movie called Holidays. So I was thinking of going in and doing a couple little videos here and there of his producerial efforts that are made under the View Askew banner. We're talking about A Better Place, Now You Know, Vulgar, and Drawing Flies. We're talking Good Will Hunting, which he was instrumental in the bringing that to the big screen, and of course his handful of episodes of TV shows like Reaper and The Flash and Supergirl. These are all ones that I want to talk about, but more than anything, I want to talk to you about the 2 Clerks TV shows. So after next week's video, where I do my whole ranking of Kevin Smith's features, I'm going to also give you my review of the Clerks pilot that came out just 2 years after Clerks came out. And it was a show that never went anywhere, as well as the short-lived Clerks animated film, or TV show that Kevin Smith was instrumental with, as well as the one that he wrote but didn't direct, which is Jay and Silent Bob Super Groovy cartoon movie. So I plan to go in and do a little of some of those. Some of them I might not do every week like I have been doing. But as we get to previews of Clerks 3 and whatnot, I'll probably dive back into the career retrospective films of Kevin Smith. So thanks for watching these. Let me know what you thought of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. This movie really stuck with me because of its emotional impact, especially me being a father now. I 100% get every single moment of the feels that Holden talks about, that Jay discovers in this film. And again, Harley's performance, hot damn, she is so, so good. And if you want tears brought to your eyes, stay through the credits and watch the little Stan Lee cameo that brought me to tears as well. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you thought of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot.